before we'd ever worked a minute, we actually already had charging privileges in the bar.
Welcome to 10-Minute Travels. With me, as always, is Phil Freeman.
And with me, as always, is Shane Patrick. And we are going to talk a little with skier and traveler and longtime Alaskan, Larry Daniels.
Let's get right to it, shall we?
There was there's a guy named Joe Danish. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of him, but Joe owned the Texaco station, and which is where the Speedway or whatever, the mall down there at the Seward Highway. But it was just a Texaco gas station back then. But Joe was, I think Joe was from Slovenia or something like that, but certainly somewhere one of the Iron Curtain countries. But Joe also headed up the community club, which Lewis Leonard now is in charge of. And one of the primary purposes of the community club was to bring television to Girdwood. And so there was an unwritten rule that you paid $5, I think $5 a year for every television you owned. So that, because there was TV Corner, up there off the, side of Tanaka. That was one of the relay stations, but there was another one over in Hope, and both of them were operated in those days by some kind of a propane system. And so we had to buy propane. You had to haul propane up to these things. And the one and I was suckered into going along to the one over in Hope, and that one was a real work because you couldn't get within about 200 vertical feet, and a couple 300 yards, from
and
that
$5
station.
a telephone or television didn't bring sling load capabilities.
No helicopters involved. Yeah. I know how you think. But anyway, yeah. So anyhow, I mean, there's, then the double muskie at that time, that was Julian and Catherine Mall, and the muskie was one of the two places that were for entertainment. And back in those days, actually, Girdwood had a lot of nightlife entertainment going on, either between the muskie and Crow Creek Mountain Lodge. That was owned by a guy named Doug Lusader. And the muskie, they had different meals each night. I think actually they served meals, I think 2 or 3 nights a week, and otherwise they were a bar. But on Saturday night they served steaks that were cooked in the fireplace, and then Herman the German and Polka Dan and assorted other folks would eventually fire up the polka music. So they'd push all the tables back against the wall, and and then the polka dancing would start, and eventually Julian would usually get tired attending bars, so then there was just a book there, and Julian would come out and party. So if you wanted a drink, you just go behind the bar and pour yourself a drink, put your name, just write down in your page, what you took, and eventually you were expected to come, pay up, not necessarily that night, not maybe even that week, and, and some folks not even that month. Yeah. One of the other things, the first day we got to Girdwood, we got picked up by Bill Chadwick. I don't know if you guys, but Bill at the time, he was had been a patrolman and was working on a lift crew in the summertime. He eventually became a paramedic in Anchorage, and then ultimately was the fire chief in Girdwood. But Bill picked us up, brought us to Alyeska. We within probably about 20 or 30 minutes of arriving at the Nugget Inn, we were upstairs in the Sitzmark. And lo and behold, before we'd ever worked a minute, we actually already had charging privileges in the bar. So
that's how they got you.
Oh yeah, and back in those days, I mean, everybody that came to work, when you came to work at Alyeska, you had a charge account at the bar, and if you came to work on the right day, on the first day of a pay period, it could be 5 weeks before you saw your first check. Well, and I must have been really close to that. And because by the time I did see my first check, there was next to nothing in it.
Yeah, one of your coworkers who will remain nameless, he told me that's how he got a full-time job there because when the ski season was over, he owed more than they owed him, so they made him stay.
Yeah. Well, I remember, well, Jim Beach, and you guys probably all remember Jim, but Jim,
Oh, yeah.
this is more going way down the, this is many years later, 15 years later or so or more. But he became he was the bar manager. Yeah, maybe it was 10 years later. And so and Jim was, I mean, he was the most honest guy in the world. So when he would buy a guy, he's tending bar, when he'd buy you a drink, he'd put it on his own tab. So Jimmy had a bar tab about $1,800 or so. But back in those days, if you're making like less than $5 an hour, that's a whole lot of money to get, So I had to
Yeah,
work
when a
out easy
Corvette
payment
costs
terms.
$3,000.
Yeah.
So
it
Larry,
was-
when you got there, and if you know what the population is now, how many people lived in Girdwood, give or take?
400 people.
Okay. And now it's like 3,000. Is that
Yeah.
accurate?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think the census is around the 23 or 24 or something like that. But, but that was also a few years ago too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there was 400 people. You couldn't buy a loaf of bread or a gallon of milk there. You could buy a lot of beer, but you couldn't buy anything to cook at home. So, yeah, it was a pretty fun place. This was also back in the day when well, we weren't part of the municipality yet, so we were just governed by the Alaska bar regulations. So so the bar basically only had again, this was mainly Chilcoots over there, or not Chilcoot. Well, it became Chilcoots, but Crow Creek Mountain Lodge. They only had to close for an hour, and they could pick whatever hour it was. So they would put they had their windows, covered with black visqueen, so it was always dark inside. And you come walking out of there on a Sunday morning at 4 a.m., broad daylight out, and it was a real eye opener, literally, but it was a real experience back in those days the bars pretty much hardly ever shut down. And I think from the looks of some of the guys and some of the people I knew around there, they only left for that hour.
That was Larry Daniels, longtime Alaskan skier and traveler, talking with us. And if you want to learn anything else about 10-minute travels and what we do, go to 10minutetravels.com.
And we want to remind you to make sure that your sense of humor matches your sense of adventure. And please like, subscribe, and share this podcast on all the platforms.